Okay, good afternoon. I am Alberto Villarreal, Managing Director of Nepanoa Transformation Advisory. Today we're talking to Anish and Ani. They are the founders of Corecentra, the social impact measurement software that Nepanoa is very proud to announce a partnership with them for the Mexico market. Anish, Ani, how are you today?
Alberto, doing well. Super excited to talk about our company and how we help organizations increase impact. Thanks for having us.
Likewise, Alberto. Great to be on the show with you.
It's a pleasure, guys. So let's jump right to it. Let's make the best use of everyone's time. Guys, what is real-time social impact?
Yeah, so tactically speaking, impact measurement and management is gathering, analyzing, and reporting impact across all initiatives and investments within an organization. Strategically speaking, the goal of impact measurement and management is to provide leaders with up-to-date insights so they can increase impact while having informed decisions based off of data. Okay. We also do this by providing stakeholders with reports and scorecards to further increase engagement.
Got it. So Anish, for example, when a company runs a campaign, right, where their employees donate thousands of dollars to different initiatives across a specific city or for a specific, mission abroad, right? Corecentra helps companies keep track of that and actually measure the impact that those initiatives are having.
Absolutely. The initiatives as well as the capital that's being used to invest in these initiatives.
Fantastic. So given that that's, the objective and the purpose of it, how is this objective accomplished?
So our job as Corecentra, as a software company, is provide organizations with the tools to effectively and comprehensively manage their impact. So the goal is they're spending less time on the manual data analysis, the data aggregation, and more time actually making an impact and engaging their stakeholders.
Got it. So from a reporting perspective, from a dashboard perspective, this makes it a lot more simple to be gathering all this information instead of going down to each one of the departments or going to the functions of your company to be chasing all this information around, correct?
Exactly, absolutely. Last thing we want users to do is all that extra manual work.
Got it.
That's right, Alberto. And I think the interesting insight there is that one of the reasons why our software is so transformative is because we empower these organizations to connect these data that they're traditionally separate data sets. They're mismatched, and what we want to do is we want to pull data from finances, from operations, human resources, corporate charitable activities, sustainability activities, pull all that in one place so that you're not running after different pieces of data that are historically sitting in different systems.
Great, Andy. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk a little bit about how we integrate with existing sources of information at companies. I mean, most of your clients are older companies, big companies, right, that have 30, 40, 50 sources of information. How does Corecentra integrate with those?
Yeah, absolutely. So not only do our application have tools to pull in data from your internal data sources, external stakeholders, nonprofits you might be working with, folks in the community, so on and so forth, but we also have an integration engine. This allows us to automate and connect data from other systems as well. And again, what we believe is we want users to spend the least amount of time on the data aggregation. So we want them to be empowered with data, have that data at their fingertips. Excellent.
So what type of reporting capabilities do we have? What type of dashboards are we building? Is it all customized, or is it that Corecentra comes in like, hey, this is the template that you're going to use going forward? How do we work with our clients to actually build what they need to track all this information and to measure the impact?
Yeah. So in two folds. One, we have a set of dashboards that we provide organizations with, which we've built from working not only with our customers, but also industry leaders in this space. Dashboards allowing users to understand performance, leverage predictive analytics, and to figure out what they should be doing to continue to make an impact. Additionally, we also have the ability to make configurations, working with customers to really understand what their impact needs are and making those changes into the system.
And that's exactly where I was going with this. How flexible is Corecentra for a company? It also speaks to, if you can share, a couple of examples of the industries, right, that you're working in.
Mm-hmm. So very flexible. We work with organizations across all industries. So corporations, both in banking, manufacturing, all the way to corporate foundations and charitable organizations, meaning our application was meant to scale and meant to grow. We're in a space where regulations, compliancy, protocols are constantly changing and evolving. Organizations that did not have to track social impact 2 years ago, 5 years ago, now having to do so. So we want an application that fits all, it checks all those boxes, can be used for the foundation. It can also be used for the large banks and the manufacturing facilities.
Excellent. And when we talk about flexibility, when we talk about the dashboards that we're providing to really measure, right, the social impact that organizations are having, and this is not only for American companies. In our case, we are already looking at the Mexico market to bring this software into the Mexico market. What type of KPIs do we see Corecentra clients usually measure?
That's a great question, Alberto, because specific metrics can vary considerably depending on the company's size and the sector, and we're comfortable working with pretty much any framework that a company might already have. But we do try to guide all of our customers to thinking about a few KPIs that are common across organizations. For example, thinking about the number of lives they're changing for the better, improving the impact of every dollar, every peso invested in their communities, ensuring that, for example, companies are maximizing the limited time and energy that their leaders and their employees have in the pursuit of social impact. So, employees volunteer their time, they work in the community, they're pursuing the right activities at work to make sure that they're being environmentally friendly. All of that are critical KPIs that are really true for almost any organization. And that's what we guide organizations to thinking about.
Excellent. And Ani, following up on that, what type of benefits have we seen in companies that are measuring their social impact accurately versus those that are not? And let's not talk about the internal efficiency that it brings. Let's talk about the value of their products in the market, the value of their stock in the market.
Yeah, that's such a great question, because not only do our customers use Corecentra, of course, to better manage impact within the organizations, as you mentioned, but also to tell a quantified narrative of the organization's impact to external stakeholders. Like you mentioned, regulators, investors, customers, communities. And what we're finding is increasingly true, no matter which geography, country, market you're looking at, is that companies that do well and do good in society are increasingly rewarded, whether it's by regulators or by markets for their good actions. If you are a responsible company and you can prove it through data, you suddenly are attracting billions of additional dollars in investments in the public markets, in partnerships, and of course, your customers.
Sure. That's great. Anish, what about from the environment perspective, right? With the environmental regulations, are constantly changing and that are becoming more strict for many companies. How can Corecentra help there?
That's such a good question, because it hits on a pain point that a lot of companies are focusing on today. There are an increasing number of frameworks and requirements and regulations out there. We call it the alphabet soup. There are all these acronyms that they have to deal with. What we do is we provide tools to integrate the data and manage initiatives in a central location. That means we're creating a single source of truth that leaders can use to not only guide their internal decisions, but they can slice and dice that data to meet different requirements and regulations. So the same data about emission standards and emissions performance can be used to fulfill European requirements and American requirements and Mexican requirements, even though they're subtly different in depending on the country.
Anish, Ani, it seems that using Corecentra is an obvious choice for CSR companies. But what about for those companies that are not CSR and perhaps are aiming to become CSR companies? What's your thought there? How can Corecentra help those businesses?
There's a lot of pressure to become compliant with CSR regulations or just expectations, regulators, customers, employees. What we help do is help these companies understand that this should not be a complicated process. It doesn't have to be so time consuming or very expensive. It's really about using technology like Corecentra to make it very simple to gather data that in many cases already exists at your companies, right? The amount of energy you're using, the number of employees that you have, how happy are they at work, what you're doing for your communities. In so many cases, companies are already doing this, but they're not able to fully realize the value of those activities. Corecentra helps simply capture what they're already doing and then shows them a couple of areas. Hey, you can do this one thing here or do this one thing here, and suddenly become CSR compliant without too much difficulty.
Fantastic. Now, how does Corecentra help organizations comply with the logical framework approach methodology?
We see two common challenges for organizations that are trying to use logical frameworks and models when it comes to decision making, whether it's impact related or otherwise. Obviously, you have to have the right data to inform the process even before you start. And then you want to create a standardized, repeatable process that you can use for every project, every initiative. And then thirdly, you want to be able to actually measure the performance. Are you actually following the framework? Is it working the way you thought it did? So obviously, by centralizing the data, Corecentra allows you to very quickly start making decisions without having to go out and gather data every single time. And then also provide structures and metrics and tools to make sure that best practices are being followed and the right questions are being asked every single time a decision is made. And then of course, you have to monitor progress carefully at every step. You don't want to get to the end of the year and realize you're well behind target. You want to know that while that's happening. And that's true when it comes to impact and environmental sustainability performance as well.
Understood. So guys, the conversation that we've had is pretty high level, right? It's about the value of Corecentra, right? It's about actually, using it to benefit the value of companies to be able to measure the impact. But what about the user interface? How easy it is for people to learn how to use it? What type of training do we provide, right? How do we teach our clients into getting the most out of the software?
Mm-hmm. We've spent a lot of time making sure that these complex data infrastructure and our application and tools are very, very easy to use. A lot of our customers have described our tools as highly intuitive, very easy to learn, and it just makes sense. Our software developers have also worked with our customer success team as well as training teams to make sure that not only is the application ready to use on day one, but we can train users within a matter of an hour or an hour and a half, and they're up and running on the application. In addition to just training, we also have a very dedicated customer success program and customer success team providing additional strategy, additional help to make sure that organizations aren't only just using our application, but making the most of it and making the most impact that they could possibly do with their application and their resources.
Got it. And just, Anish and Ani, I'm sure that many people listening to this may say, oh, well, but we only have one initiative a year. Or others that say, well, guess what? We have 20 initiatives a year and it's impossible, right? What do we see on average, right, with our clients? What do you see on average that the number of initiatives, of CSR initiatives that Corecentra's clients do over the year and Corecentra helps track?
It's surprising, Alberto, when we start talking to companies, they say, oh yeah, we just have 4 or 5 initiatives. And then we say, well, what about you at your facilities or your factories or your offices? What about your hiring practices? What you're doing to develop your workforce? What about charitable giving, financial commitments? How many jobs are you creating in the community? What's your supply chain like? How do you validate that the supply chain is ethical? And when they start tallying up the list, they realize how much and how broad their corporate social responsibility actually is. It sometimes goes well beyond what they thought it was. So realistically, we're looking at even the smallest company will have anywhere between half a dozen to a dozen quote unquote initiatives, but in reality, the CSR data is coming from all over the companies. And when we talk to leaders and managers at the world's largest companies, the ones that are very much thinking about CSR in every aspect, it's amazing how many of their decisions, especially during a pandemic, include some type of impact consideration, right? That's everything, making sure that the factory is not polluting, do your employees have the right safety equipment, right? Or are you contributing a percentage of your sales to support local charities? All of that is CSR, and it's so incredibly important in today's corporate world.
So it really helps us do an inventory of how much impact we're having. It's not just specifically that initiative that you market internally or that you market externally, but it's many other things that you do as a CSR business, right? That perhaps you're not looking into.
That's right. And it's exactly why companies have accounting software or operational software, because you want to have a hold on every single thing that's happening inside your company from a financial operational perspective. The same should be true of impact.
Great. So Anish and Ani, do you have any final comments?
Anish, I would just close, and you might say this better than I do, but I think corporate social responsibility is a buzzword, but it's not just about giving money or saying the right things. It's about making sure that every aspect of your operations reflects your values as a company, as a positive force in your communities. And you really can't do that properly if you don't have the right data. And that's what we're here for.
Anish and Ani, thank you very much for your time. Greatly appreciate your knowledge and you sharing, what Corecentra does with our audience. This is Alberto Villarreal, Managing Director of Nepanoa Transformation Advisory. Have an excellent day.